Are you someone who wants to be more creative and innovative in your work? Or perhaps you're a manager or a supervisor who wants their team, the people that they lead, to become more creative, to be more innovative, to come up with solutions rather than just simply bringing in problems, because that would make your job a whole lot easier. Recently, I conducted a workshop on creativity and innovation. And across the board, there were really two big barriers that made it difficult for professionals to be creative. Number one was an internal barrier. And that barrier was a voice in their mind that said, I am not creative. Creativity lies in the skill set or the gifts that a certain group of people have. I'm not one of those people. And then the second is external barrier. And that oftentimes is a result of the manager, the leader. It could actually even be you, where the organization that they work, the culture in which they work, their manager, their leader, does not support a creative mindset, in the sense that they don't want people to be creative, or at least they don't communicate that. And so it's an environment that's not psychologically safe. And when I say an environment that's not psychologically safe, what I'm essentially saying is that people don't feel comfortable in sharing their ideas for fear of being seen as a troublemaker, or being off of left field, or just being somebody who's just stirring the pot. And so that environment and that culture doesn't facilitate their innovative and creative ideas. And so they don't step up, they don't share it. And that costs the organization, your team, if you're the manager, a lot of potential developments and advancements and enhancements in productivity. So in this video, I'd like to share with you just two simple strategies on how to create a culture that's much more creative. And I'm going to approach it from two angles. One is from the individual's perspective, and two is from the manager, the organization's perspective. So I'm going to start with the individual barrier, that voice that says, I am not creative. Now, the worst piece of advice that anybody can possibly give you is that just think that you're creative, or develop the confidence to be creative and you'll be creative. Well, no, that doesn't just work that way. I'm sure that there's some benefit to it, right, through the placebo effect. But ultimately, to be creative, you have to essentially apply yourself and test it and try things, iterate. And the best way that you can kind of do that is by working on small projects. Come up with a small project, look within your team, within your area, and look for some sort of inefficiency, something that perhaps isn't being optimized, that perhaps your leadership doesn't really know about. They're not aware of because they have to deal with so many other things. Identify it and just really kind of think about different solutions to it, right? Because the last thing that a manager and leader wants to have is just another problem on their plate, and you present them with a problem with no solutions. Well, it's going to kind of stifle your desire to change things, right? However, if you switch it around and you present the issue, right, the inefficiency potentially, but then you offer some creative solutions that you've thought about along the way, that you've brainstormed essentially, either through yourself or using some AI tools like ChatGPT or Perplexity to come up with potential solutions, or talking with other people within your company, your organization, or even your team on different solutions. You present that to your leadership, your organization, well, they're going to be much more receptive to it because you've actually thought through, you've done the heavy lifting. It can just be something very, very simple to begin with. But then over time, as you do these small creative endeavors, initiatives, and you present them, and you start perhaps to see the traction that it gets, you start to see people being more receptive to your ideas. Ultimately, your creative confidence will go up, and your confidence in general will ultimately go up. I'm going to add one more caveat to that, is that you can come up with a great idea, a great creative solution, an innovative solution. However, you also need to learn how to effectively sell that idea to your leadership and to your managers, because even the best laid idea is not going to resonate or hit if it's sold improperly, if it's not effectively communicated. Now, there's two ways you can look at this. Number one is you can take some sales courses. You can enhance your presentation skills. Or another strategy is simply to write out your proposal in an email. You write out your proposal in an email, you have a chance to really kind of think it through and frame it in a way and present it in a way that is very, very clear to your leadership. And so when you present it, oh, it's clear for them and they can better understand it. Because quite often when we're in person speaking, our nervousness can get in our way. We don't necessarily articulate the things that we wanted to in as effective way as we'd like to. And ultimately our ideas can fall flat, right? So you might even consider writing it, as I pointed out. Now, the second way to enhance creativity and innovation on your team is from the manager's perspective. And as I mentioned earlier in the video, one of the biggest challenges is a lack of psychological safety. Now, there's two things that you can do for this. Number one is just to really communicate to your team that you are open to creative and innovative ideas. And a way that you can build that into your daily processes is at the beginning of, let's say, weekly or biweekly or monthly meetings, just have a section, maybe the first 10 minutes of your meeting, where you talk about innovative and creative ideas. Does anybody have any ideas, right? And in the beginning, it may seem a little bit slow because it'll be a new initiative. But over time, as people start learning that or getting used to the fact that you are open to creative and innovative ideas, they're going to start presenting more. Now, the catch with this, the caveat to this is that you have to remain open-minded. And that means quieting your mouth and just listening and asking questions before interjecting your own thoughts. So that's a very powerful strategy. Just building them into your system, because this will create what amounts to be psychological safety. And the second thing that you can do is create what amounts to be a pilot project. And pilot projects are essentially low stakes projects that you set aside just for individuals so they can develop confidence, develop a little bit of courage. There's really nothing at stake. And ultimately, if it doesn't go well, you can just say, hey, you know what? This was just a pilot project. And as they get better and better at these pilot projects, perhaps you can trust them with more innovative and more larger ideas. So there you have it. Two approaches to unleash a wave of creativity within your teams and your organization. Good luck.